this episode of the Business Communicators.
Be deliberate, be intentional. You don't have to do and be everything everywhere all at once. And if you can't make a good business case, just don't do it. It's okay. You don't have to do it all.
You're listening to the Business Communicators. And now your hosts, Austin Stepp and Thomas Bain.
Welcome to Season 5, Episode 9 of the Business Communicators. My name's Austin Stepp, joined alongside the co-host, Thomas Bain, on the number one rated marketing and communications podcast in the world. And again, that's a verifiable fact. But Thomas, you were in a car for about 3.5 hours before joining us to record, I guess, a special episode on Instagram Threads. You wanted to discuss it. So you left Fort Worth early so you could be here.
Absolutely. Was up there for a friend's 40th birthday party. And, you know, we always talk about our relationships and networks being the most important thing. And 40th is a big milestone. I think the biggest challenge is all of us, well, us being from Texas and the world is a big place, that the flight versus drive is almost the exact same amount of time between the check-in and check-out and not having cars and those kind of things. So made the drive and made it here in time. So glad to be here. Everything along those lines. And as you mentioned to our guest a little bit earlier, I do want to say that we do have to make a correction on our podcast about the Taylor Swift thing.
That's a big correction.
I know. Yet I still think there's a lot more behind that story, but we thought that she had not signed with FTX, and it appears that there might be some behind the scenes negotiation going on.
Yeah. So we, just for background, a few episodes ago, I think it might have been our happy hour episode, but there was a lot of conversation going around that, Taylor Swift had all of this business savvy and that she did not sign with FTX, but apparently, according to the New York Times on July 6th, we were giving her credit about doing her due diligence, more so than the tech pros, essentially, if you will. But in reality, Taylor Swift actually signed the sponsorship agreement with FTX. So
more to come. Update. We are following that story, but also behind the scenes, we do talk about our predictions, and glad to kick it off with our guest on today's episode about what we're talking about multiple times.
So before we get into our guests, we'll go ahead and, of course, do the plugs. You can follow us at BizCommunicator on all the social platforms. Also visit our website, thebusinesscommunicators.com, and we're now on Threads as well. So if you're on Instagram Threads, you can find us there. But let's go ahead and bring our guest onto the show. And we've got Chris Ferris, who is a vice president of digital strategy at Pierpont Communications. Chris, you are the expert when it comes to all things digital comms here in Houston. You're also an adjunct professor. Is it adjunct professor at Rice University? Is that right?
I think I'm technically a lecturer because if you're an adjunct professor, they don't pay you as well. So I said I'll be a lecturer.
Smart. See, that's the business negotiation side.
That's the business savvy. That's right, Austin.
Exactly. But Chris, it's great to have you on the podcast this week. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because we're actually recording this on Sunday. So if you're listening to this, it's probably on Monday. On Friday, Pierpont, your company, you've got like a kind of a blog series. We will try to provide market insights for potential clients, existing clients. And you had a great post on Instagram Threads, basically answering the question, should businesses be on the platform? And, Threads has only been around for 4 or 5 days now. I think as the time that we're recording, there are 97 million users that have signed up. Probably should caveat that, it's not like the traditional user sign-up growth, right, where people are downloading TikTok, having to create an account. These are people sort of migrating their Instagram credentials over to Threads. So we'll, just go ahead and give you the floor. What are your initial thoughts, less than a week into this Threads experiment?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Austin. I'm happy to be here on the podcast. It's really a delight. Even on a Sunday afternoon, it's fun to be here to talk about this. So my first take on this is, there's been all this talk about whether there's going to be an actual physical cage match between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. And as you may know, apparently Mark Zuckerberg is actually quite good at mixed martial arts, and people are expecting him to step into the ring and make quick work of Elon Musk. And he decided to do it digitally instead. They don't need to do the cage match anymore because it happened on Friday and Zuckerberg has won. It's still early days, but this seems like it is probably going to be a Twitter killer. Twitter was slowly killing itself with all of the foolish and short-sighted and impetuous decisions that Musk has been making over the last 8 months or so. But I would say that the physical cage match is not necessary because it happened and Zuck won.
I'm intrigued to see if the lawsuit that's being threatened as of Friday as well might go through, or if it's just lawyer posturing right now.
I think that's probably what it is.
It's lawyer posturing.
Yeah.
Musk doesn't want to go into court for any reason at any time. He had threatened to go to the Chancery Court in Delaware last year over whether he had to pay money for Twitter or not, and he eventually backed off, and he does not want to go to court. This is just legal posturing. And if he really was worried about Twitter impersonators or imitators, he would have sued Blue Sky or Post or Mastodon already, and he did none of that.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of interesting because, Mastodon, Blue Sky, those were all supposed to be Twitter alternatives, and they just, kind of fell off the side of the earth. They were never able to get past that beta mode, right? Where it was just, it's still under construction. You had to have invites, to kind of join, and then Threads rolls around, and anyone automatically who has an Instagram account is able to join. So that was almost, just a built-in advantage. But it is kind of interesting because you mentioned the cage match, and while I would love to see that, like in person, of course, if we can watch Jake Paul become a boxer, we can watch Elon and Zuck go at it in a UFC ring. But I did see a tweet on June 8th. And it was from a news reporter, and he wrote that all the same people who, for years, loudly stated that Zuck was undermining our democracy are now shilling his company's new product. Extraordinary. One of the responses under that was just talking to someone about that. It feels like Zuck and Elon are trying to Trump Hillary us into, quote, holding our noses and using the network of the person we dislike less. I thought that was a really interesting take. But, when you look at the platform, it's interesting. I mean, for the first few days on Threads, it was all memes about Elon. But Zuck is on there. He, kind of, I don't know, subtweeted on his old Twitter account that he hadn't used in, a decade. And so it just seems like we've got two billionaires out there trying to own the community square.
Yeah, and I was being a little bit glib that it's still early days. Threads, as you pointed out, Austin, is only 4 or 5 days old. It claims to have, I think the last number you said was 90 million or something as of today.
Yeah, 97 million.
And you made the excellent point that it was so easy for users to switch their accounts over to Threads from Instagram. So I did a little research. There's the data is a couple of years old, but Hootsuite published some data from 2021, and 85.7% of Twitter users also use Instagram. So that's a pretty big overlap. And I think I'm sure that the folks at Meta knew that. And when they decide to link it to Instagram, notice they didn't link it to Facebook, right? They linked it to Instagram.
Right.
Because I think they knew there was a lot of overlap, and that because it was an app only, it would be super easy. And they made it super easy to flip it over. It took me about 25 seconds when I tried it out on Friday morning. So I think they were very sage and strategic in linking it so closely. Now, they may have hurt themselves a little bit because you probably heard, and a lot of the stores, I think, buried the lead, that if you choose to delete your Threads account, that also will now delete your Instagram account. So you're kind of stuck with both. Now, they may uncouple them at one point in the future, but right now, if you've created a Threads account from your Instagram, you're stuck with both now. And so an example of that is Pierpont Communications, where I work. We don't have an Instagram account, right? We're a communications company. We don't do a lot of visual work. We do, some website design and some graphics, but we're primarily a written communications firm. And so we've never found a good reason for us to be on Instagram for our own business. So now we have to decide, and we've been on Twitter, for years. Now we need to decide, do we need to create an Instagram account so we can create a Threads account because we think Threads is a good business forum for us? And then if we do that, do we need to make it just like a burner Instagram account and never use it? So these are some of the decisions that businesses are going to have to make, particularly if you're not already on Instagram.
Yeah. I will say that, granted, we've all had limited experience on the platform. I think it goes without saying that there's a lot of growth that can come from Threads, right? There's still a lot of features that, and you wrote about this on Friday, that they don't have right now, like search, There's not like a tweet deck alternative at this point, but you know
There's
that.
no direct messaging, no hashtags.
Yeah.
Your feed is your followers. They just kind of throw everything together in your feed. I tried it, and I'm getting some stuff from my followers, but I'm also getting a lot of other things. So I've been very aggressive with my mute and block button.
Same.
So that I'm trying to curate my feed so that it's stuff that I want, not just stuff that it thinks I want.
Yeah.
So,
And I was going to say, I have noticed that it's actually gotten a little bit better. Because Friday night, I pulled out Threads, and the first 3 posts that I see, they were from people that I'm not following at all. First 3 posts, I screen capped it. It says, "Yo, I might be kind of fat." Nah, bro, we're sturdy. Another one was, "I hate the key E minor. It gives me the EBGBs." Okay. Krispy Kreme donuts are the superior donut. I looked at that. Those were the first 3 threads that I saw. And I was like, there's no way this is sustainable. Like, if they're going to be forcing me to view this as my top post, this is very problematic. I shouldn't have to go through and, like you said, mute or hide every single post. Well, now the past, I don't know, 36 hours when I've gone back, I still think it's more curated for me. It's showing me more people that I do follow, not necessarily in chronological order, but it's at least been a better experience. So to me, it's fascinating to be able to see the algorithm almost adjust in real time.
I'm wondering what's it doing on the ad space, the ad buys, because I bought ads on Instagram, I bought ads on Facebook, I bought ads on Twitter. How is the targeting going from there? Because hearing your initial statement makes me concerned on if I'm going to have a client, hey, we need to do a quick ad buy because we don't have the followers. How's that targeting going? But then it also makes me scratch my head because in Facebook and in Instagram, they have such a curated of who you are and what companies are buying ads targeting you. And so it makes the recommendation even better. I'm wondering if they were just trying to get it launched so fast that they didn't pull in that information on the back end, or if they just kind of.
Well, as of now, you can't buy ads on Threads. They're not offering ads. They've said I listened to an interview with Adam Mosseri, who's the head of Instagram, who's also running the Threads project. And by the way, side note, I think it was curious that they made him sort of the face of this and not Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
even though Zuck was dunking on Musk, they made Adam Mosseri the face of this new launch. And I think that was very intentional because I think they know that even though he's not quite as unpopular as Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg is still quite unpopular.
Right.
But anyway, to your point about ads, so he made the point that saying we're not allowing ads yet, we will eventually. And to me, this is one of the big questions is Twitter never really made a lot of money from ads. Twitter was never a very successful business from an ads perspective. That's why Musk has been trying to get people to subscribe. And that's partly because the ads have fled like crazy. Advertisers have left, and that's why he hired, I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden, the new CEO, who came from NBC Universal, who was really good at ads. So she's supposed to resurrect the ad business for Twitter. But anyway, Twitter never really made a lot of money. In fact, it lost money most of the time it was in existence because they never quite figured out how to monetize their ads. And it's because when you're scrolling through Twitter, it's people who are not watching me do this, you can see my finger swiping up and down like this because that's kind of how people do Twitter. You just sort of mindlessly scroll. And if Threads is going to be like that, are people going to stop and look at ads? And probably not. I think the only way they're going to make ads work is if they're kind of awareness ads. There's going to be very little B2C kind of stuff where impulse purchases. I know that I bought stuff from Instagram ads, and the Instagram ads are pretty good in my view. They've really got it, and the ads look good, and they're not offensive, and they're targeted really well. So on the one hand, they've got the ad thing figured out from Meta, but how they adapt that and apply it to Threads, I think, is the big question. And how much money are they willing to lose on this for how long? And before they figure the ad thing out, I think is a big question. And then to your point, if you're a business, when do you try Threads ads? And I don't know the answer to that yet because I don't know what the ads are going to look like yet.
So what about for businesses? Like, is it what should businesses do right now? If they are on all of these platforms, obviously they've got social teams that are kind of evaluating this, but what are key targets that you would advise your clients or potential clients to look at when it comes to answering the question, should I be on it now? Should I wait?
Right.
What should my strategy be?
So as I wrote on Friday, and this may change as Threads evolves, but as of now, I would recommend that you deputize somebody on your social media or your digital team and or your agency, if you've got an agency that you use for your social media, deputize somebody to go and set up a personal account on Threads and just get to know the platform. How is it working? Do you like what the kinds of posts that you're seeing are? What's the dialogue like? What's the tone? What's the tenor? Is it really political? Is it really funny? Is it really jokey? Is it really toxic? And I would encourage you to have somebody on your team who you trust evaluate it over the next couple of weeks and then decide, okay, is this the right place for us? And then look back at your Twitter account. Now, presumably, if you weren't on Twitter, I don't know why you would really go on Threads. Because
right.
they're not identical, they're not apples to apples, but they're pretty close. So if you didn't already have a Twitter account, I guess you could make a case. Well, now that there's this alternative, maybe I'll go into Threads. But if you didn't already have a Twitter account, I'm not sure why you need to jump feet first into Threads. So that's my advice: and then wait to see what the ad space looks like. To your point, how do you get followers? What's an easy or good way to grow followers? If you have an existing Instagram account, then it's really easy to sort of switch over. But again, they're two really different mediums. Instagram is a very visual medium. It's pictures, it's videos. Threads, if it's anything like Twitter, which it appears to be, is going to be very text-based. So again, a company like Pierpont, we never did Instagram because it wasn't a good fit for us. So now we need to decide, is Threads a good fit for us? And the other thing I would note is that Adam Mosseri has also gone out of his way to say that politics and news, I'm quoting him here, he said, politics and hard news are inevitably going to show up on Threads. They have Instagram, but we're not going to do anything to encourage those verticals. So what my interpretation of that is we're trying to make it not like Twitter. So a lot of people used Twitter to try to get attention and to get into the news cycle. Donald Trump basically got elected president doing that. And it seems, at least out of the gate, that Threads is not going to be the same sort of town square for political discourse. At least they don't want it to be. And they can skew that based on how they set up their algorithm. So they can say, we're not going to boost political posts or news posts. We're going to boost culture posts or sports posts or whatever they decide they want the primary topics to be. So that was a very long answer to a very simple question, which was, should a business be on Threads? And the answer is, it really depends.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the hard news, because to me that was something that it was actually on my notes that I wanted to bring up just now, because that's what I like about Twitter. I use Twitter for news and I use it for sports. I'm not doing it to share photos of my food or anything like that. When it came to Threads, I when I was creating an account, I realized that a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram, I don't follow on Twitter. Like, I don't care what they have to say, but if they're posting photos and stuff like that, I'm interested in seeing their content on Instagram. And I think it's, to me, two different worlds that I live in. And Threads is trying to be that mix for both. And just from me personally, I don't know that it has a utility if I can't get real-time updates on live events, on news, whether it's entertainment, politics, sports. I follow a lot of accounts right now on the situation in the war in Ukraine. I can't see that content on Threads right now. And for me, I don't know if I'm going to be a user if I can't have those things. And interestingly enough, I think a lot of people forget about this, but I think it was 2015, 2016. Twitter actually changed their classification, their category in the Apple App Store. It used to be listed under social media, and then it was switched to news.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was 2014 to 2016, somewhere in that time frame. So to me, I think if you want to have that town hall, that square approach, you have to have news and discourse. Now, it can't be toxic. That's what drives people away.
I think the real challenge comes into play is we've talked about it on the show, Chris, you've mentioned it too, about content is king. Is if you're visual, go play here. If you're verbal, go play there. If you're text, go there. But at the end of the day, we go to where our people are, for lack of a better statement. And if they have 90 million users, politicians are going to go there and they're going to build their followers and they're going to be able to say what they want. And it's up to us as humans to say, no, we don't. And then Austin, I see where you're coming from, is that if it's not going to be real time or near real time, then what's the benefit I'm going to get from being there? And I think that's where the challenge is going to come into play is, are we really producing content that is useful for our customers, potential customers on the platform? And if the answer is no, then I'm going to tell my businesses, don't go there.
Yeah, and again, it has to talk, and this is what I talk about in my class all the time, is any decision there are so many ways you can engage with a digital strategy for a business. It's limitless, not limitless, but virtually limitless. And it can be overwhelming. And so I tell students this, I tell our clients this, which is just be deliberate, be intentional. You don't have to do and be everything everywhere all at once. Certain brands do, like Nike, Apple, big sports brands like Real Madrid or the New York Yankees, like they've got to be kind of everywhere because they want to reach as many people as possible. But most businesses, you don't have to be on Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, all of them. You need to pick the ones that make the most sense for your business and that drive back to your business objectives. And if you can't make a good business case, just don't do it. It's okay. You don't have to do it all.
I think you hit the nail on the head about the big brands because they're playing that awareness. We want to make sure that no matter where you are, versus so many more companies need to be a little bit further down that funnel versus just the spray and pray method of advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my other advice is watchful waiting. Does it make sense for you to be on Threads? And then if it doesn't make sense, you don't have to do it. It's okay. You don't have to be on every single platform. Again, I don't know what Pierpont's going to do. We haven't decided yet. I'm going to keep monitoring it and trying it out as a person, as an individual. And then I'll start making recommendations internally about whether we think it's a good match for us. And I'm sure our clients will start asking me the same thing. Do we need to be on Threads? And I'll tell them the same thing. Let's tie it back to your business goals. How will Threads grow awareness, bring new customers, satisfy your existing customers, spread word of mouth? Can we do any of those things on Threads? And if we can't, then we don't need to be there. It's okay.
If you're, just let's take a step back. If we're a step forward right now, if we're having this conversation a year from now, and we're kind of looking at the social media landscape, I think there's a few certainties that we could say. Well, really, I don't know if there are, because I was going to say that we know apps like Facebook and TikTok are going to be around, but with TikTok, there's still so many question marks on whether or not actions from governments take place. But if we're having this conversation, maybe specifically about Threads and Twitter 1 year from now, where do we sit? What do both platforms look like? Do they still exist? Do they still have separate audiences? Or does one turn into Clubhouse or Google Plus and kind of vanishes? I mean, where are we sitting a year from now when we're having this conversation?
So my forecast is that if Twitter continues on the path it is going to, it's essentially going to become Parler. And Elon Musk will have spent $44 billion to buy Twitter, only to turn it into Parler when he could have bought Parler for a bag of chips and a couple of loose change in between the seats of his cushions of his couch. So I still think that he is determined to behave impulsively and alienate people and act like he knows everything. And I think that in a year, Twitter will effectively be more or less like Parler. Now, whether Threads is the replacement or not, it really depends how serious Adam Mosseri is about not leaning into news on the platform. They may decide that if they really want to get buzz around Threads, they're going to need to talk about news, because that's what people like to go on Twitter for. Like to your point, Austin, is to see news, react to news, comment on news, get hot takes on the news. And if they decide not to do that, then I think eventually it's not going to go the way of Google Plus, which is a great line, by the way, Austin. But it'll probably be a little bit more niche. And that's the path that social media has been going down for the last couple of years anyway. There's so many different niches now. And every year there's a few more. And this may just be one other niche product, not as dominant as Instagram or Facebook. That would be my guess, unless they lean into the news, I think. And that's sort of the dilemma they've got. If they want to be important and timely and have buzz around them, I think they're going to have to go for the news. Now, you mentioned sports, Austin. They may lean into the sports thing, because that's the other thing where you have like live reaction to sporting events, and people love to comment. And even a lot of the broadcasters will show tweets during the games or at halftime or commercial break and things like that. So are they going to start doing that from Threads instead of Twitter? I don't know. It depends, again, how much they lean into current events broadly defined.
Yeah, it's really going to be fascinating to watch, and I know I use that term constantly on the show. It's going to be fascinating to watch, but it truly is. To see the amount of growth that they've had in such a short period of time, it's remarkable. But both Zuck and Mosseri have been very forthcoming in saying, look, the growth doesn't matter if we can't build a product that you want to stick around and use.
And
And
if they
so
can't monetize it, if they don't
exactly,
make money, if they can't figure out the ads on Threads, then it may just be sort of a side project, and they may punt on it.
exactly.
And take some of the people who've been interactive or doing post, whatever they're going to be called, tweets, post on Threads, sewing. I'm wondering how many of they're paying for like influencers, for lack of a better statement, who are already Instagram influencers, who are big name people, to just say, hey, we're here, we're doing this, because there are some behind the scenes deals that are taking place. But Zuckerberg's got a really, really deep war chest for monetization of both Instagram and Facebook. I was going to throw this out there to y'all because I haven't really been, because like I said, I was out celebrating in the real world, not with my phone attached on me. Does it already have the plugins for, you mentioned Hootsuite, Sprinkler, or any of those other platforms to start scheduling posts and things along those lines? Or is it still, let's get the intern to hit play at a certain time?
As far as I know, it does not have, it had not released an API to sync it with Hootsuite or anything like that. I mean, they were going to roll it out, from what I've heard. I think it was on the Hard Fork podcast this weekend. No, maybe it was the Slate podcast. Anyway, one of those two. They were planning to roll this out later this summer, but then there was this outage on Twitter over the weekend, and then Musk said, "Oh, you can only see a limited number of posts," and they felt like, once again, Musk was sort of lighting Twitter on fire, and they thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity. Let's push it out early. So that's, from the reporter that I heard, is what they decided to do. That they weren't intending to release it this early, and they might have had more of the features, like releasing the API so you could use Hootsuite and things, or Sprout Social or something like that. So I think they saw an opening and took it, and that's why they released it this weekend, knowing that there would be some downsides to that.
Hey, there's the business tidbit: is if you see the opportunity, take it.
Yeah.
And one thing is, they've been very transparent about that, by saying, we know we don't have all the features. Those are coming. Our team is hard at work at creating those. But now I think the clock is ticking. They need to show results for people to continue to want to stay on the platform. But it's really interesting. And I feel like there have been rumors for years that Facebook/Twitter, Facebook/Instagram have been working on a Twitter competitor. There have been rumors that maybe Meta would purchase Twitter at some point. So it does feel like this has been in the hopper for quite some time. And like, Chris just alluded to, they just pounced on the opportunity. Yeah. So stay tuned. We'll be there in the time being. You can follow us at BizCommunicator. And we'll see what happens with it. It should be interesting. Will video become an important point? Will there be spaces or communities where you can go into groups and have conversations, or live audio? That's going to be something to look forward as well. But again, we've got Chris Ferris joining us on the Business Communicators. Chris is the VP of Digital Strategy at Pierpont Communications, based in Houston, with offices in Dallas and Austin and San Antonio. Chris, for people that maybe want to kind of follow the work that you're doing, or get in touch with Pierpont for different communication strategies or services, what is the best way for them to learn more and to reach you guys?
You can visit our website, which is purecom.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I have my invitations open, so if you hear this podcast and want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just say, hey, I heard you on the pod. I'd like to connect with you. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. I write a lot for Pierpont, and I publish blog posts that we always link to them from our Pierpont feed, so you can follow Pierpont on LinkedIn as well. I'm actually not very active on Twitter these days. I haven't posted on Twitter in about 6 months. But I am on Threads, and my thread handle is it's Ferris PhD, because that was the handle I had on Instagram, and when I moved over, that's what I got stuck with on Threads. So if you want to follow me on Threads, it's Ferris PhD.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that my Threads personal handle is Austin Staton. I was able to get that early on. So excited about that.
That makes me feel better as I set up my Threads account this afternoon, that it's going to be the same at Thomas Bain. Not that I post on any of those social platforms other than LinkedIn for obvious reasons.
I don't know. You could be the influencer among us, Thomas.
Could be. Probably won't, but could be.
You're saying there's a chance, but Chris, we really appreciate you for taking the time and joining us on this Sunday afternoon. And yeah, we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks so much again. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It was just a distinct pleasure to talk to you both today. I really appreciate the invitation.
Well, Thomas, that was a fun conversation. I know that we don't have all the answers right now when it comes to Threads and kind of what the future holds for that platform, what the future holds for Twitter. But it's fun to at least speculate and to have like an expert insight, expert opinion to share his thoughts. And I'm sure we'll have Chris back on in a few months. Kind of once things have settled down, we have a better viewpoint on what Threads looks like. What is the state of Twitter? Yeah, fun conversation.
It's always great to get another perspective in there. And I always like to say that us in marketing communications, business communications, it's still theory-based because we are dealing with humans. This is the law of physics. We're still theory-based. And it's great to get those point of views, especially as breaking news is happening from experts who know what they're doing. And it was refreshing to hear that, hey, we're still watching and seeing what happens. And we don't know if your company should be on there or not.
Well, he brought up a great point about advising brands right now, just to have someone on there that's kind of looking and seeing what's going on. That is really interesting to me because you've got 97 million users that are on the platform right now. How many people are actually lurking? How many people, because I've got a lot of people who followed me due to the Instagram connection, who I know for a fact are not active or even using Twitter. And so of those 97, how many are going to continue to be active users on Threads? I think that's something else to look at for the long-term viability of the platform.
And it's something that I don't think anybody's ever going to do work on or research on, but I think it would be just an interesting talking point. Maybe college could talk about it, is how quickly do the influencers start to try to migrate in there? Hey, use Samsung phones. Hey, go here. And wondering if that's going to be one of their income streams, because a lot of those influencers are already on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Yeah. I have noticed that I think early on, this platform is very friendly toward, at least the algorithm is very friendly toward brands and influencers that are already pre-existing. I think that's going to be problematic if it remains that way long term. Because I don't want to follow some of these brands and influencers. Like I have Shakira was somebody that was being like the top recommended follow for the first few hours on the platform. Like I don't care what Shakira has to say.
Maybe depending on what she's pushing at that time. She's a pretty savvy businesswoman,
right? But I mean, I'm not looking for her for news updates,
No.
But that's again where it comes. My platforms are completely the content that I curate on those platforms is completely different,
Yeah, and you were really good at keeping this is for this platform. This is for this platform is for this result. This platform is for this result. And this platform is for that. Hey, I have 30 seconds to kill. I'm going to go here. Hey, I want breaking news that I know something's about to go down because of the press conference or earnings calls. I'm going to go here.
Yeah. That's and if I got 2.5 hours to kill, that's where I'll go to TikTok. But
2.5, you're still selling it short. It's like 4.
Yeah, but that to me, I think the news thing is going to be the most important aspect of Threads. Like I don't really use the Twitter desktop page. I don't really use the phone. I use TweetDeck. If I'm watching a sporting event, Sunday afternoons in the fall when I'm watching football, I've got a tab open for my fantasy football. I've got a tab open for TweetDeck so I can see everything that's going on. And I see it in real time as it's happening. And so I don't see the ads because I'm using TweetDeck. I think Threads needs to create some sort of alternative to TweetDeck or some sort of desktop version, because screen time is already so much of an issue, at least on our phones. If we can at least move it to a desktop, I don't know, that might be better for brands as well that are trying to monitor.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned live sports and breaking news is, we've said it before, that's been one of the few things that's kept cable television still in existence, even though a lot of them are signing, a lot of college platforms and NFL are signing with Amazon Primes and those kind of things to where you can watch it on your big screen television like you're watching it on television. And I think some of those pre-built-in contracts that they have might be one of the things that makes Threads a viable option in the long run because it already has those pre-built-in connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let us know what you think. Hit us up in the comments. Feel free to reach us on all the social media platforms, including Threads. We're there. Just search at Biz Communicator. You can find us on those platforms. Also, our website, thebusinesscommunicators.com. Thomas, it was fun getting together on a Sunday afternoon. We hope that you all enjoyed this episode. You all have a blessed week. So, on behalf of our guest this week, Chris Ferris, my name is Austin Staton, alongside Thomas Bain, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.